Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hey/X/ I've benefited from your community's advice a few years ago, and I'm here seeking identification of something I encountered. It's a long one, so bear with me. I was 18, the senior year of high school. Spring break trip with 50 students to Santa Cruz Island, off the coast of Santa Barbara. Learn about it being sacred land to a native tribe. They didn't live there, but came once a year to kill a whale, later colonized and used by farmers, military, and smugglers. Choppy boat ride leads us to a small beach and a dock with access to the island. Path is a half-mile to camp one way, and we need to make multiple trips in and out to carry our gear. Most students are pissed off and it starts to rain a lot. A good friend and I offered to pick up the last bit of gear while the others set up camp. Didn't want to return back to crying classmates, so we spent some time by the water. On the dock, facing towards the island, a small rocky cove extends to the right side. We part ways to piss, myself on the beach and him up and around the path. I begin to hear whispers. Not hallucinations, not waves, not wind, but clearly audible whispers, coming from a cave at the end of the small beach. Although it was overcast, the rain had stopped and the sea was calm. My buddy returns and I sit down on the beach with him, directing his attention out towards the sea. Whispers begin again and his head snaps towards me with widened eyes. I knew it wasn't just me, and he looked towards the cave. We went to meditate inside the cave as we felt it appropriate. Closing our eyes, we put our hands to the wall of the cave. I see a being, long hair covering its entire body, two small black horns protruding from its skull, gaping eyes and mouth, black, unchanging. It communicated with thoughts and spoke to me. It asked me to encourage the other people there to not remove anything from the island, but to do so without telling them of our meeting. I agree. We exited the cave. Couldn't have been in there for more than 10 minutes. My friend's watch says it's been an hour. Damn it, now we're late back to camp. On our way back, we spotted a park ranger eyeing the gear we were bringing back. Whose fishing pole is this? There's no fishing permitted on this island. Almost as soon as she angrily speaks to us, I see the thing from the cave looming over her. My eyes are open this time. It stands about 8 feet tall, menacingly above her. We explain to her that it is not ours, and that we'll be sure to inform the owner when we reach our campsite. She leaves, and so does the entity. We make it back to camp, spend a few days hiking and having fun. I feel a presence throughout our time spent there. Kids pick up shells, rocks, all kinds of things. Hey, maybe we can just remember the experiences we have here instead of taking things back home with us? Mostly everyone I talk to about this agrees to an extent, or lies to me and removes things anyway. I never mentioned what I saw. Fast forward to a night we all spend telling personal stories and confiding our weaknesses and strengths with the group. Talking with a friend of mine, a very spiritual girl, attuned to things others don't really notice. The presence of the thing was very strong that night. Nearly had a panic attack, and I asked to confide in her. I opened my mouth to begin, and it's looming behind her, staring at me with its gaping eyes again, but this time with anger and hostility. She urges me to continue, but I shut my mouth. I think about it. This girl is okay. She can help me with what's needed. It must have agreed because it silently left. I explained to her about my experience on the beach. She's visually emotional, eyes glistening in the dark. She says she's felt something powerful since we've been here, like we shouldn't ever be here in the first place. We embraced tearfully. It was good to not bear the burden alone. The rest of our trip continued to feel strange. My two friends and I continued to encourage the others not to remove anything from the island. We packed up our gear on an equally rainy day and departed back towards the coast. Although it reached out to me, I believe it only did so with interest in helping itself and with the interest of protecting sacred land. People aren't meant to be there, so I don't think I'll ever return. It wouldn't feel right, even though I have unanswered questions swimming in my head years afterwards. Does anyone have any idea what it may have been? Thanks for listening. I encourage you all to not venture to the location.
Hey/X/, I had a really messed up experience this summer and decided I needed to share it somewhere. I've never used 4chan before, so excuse me if my green texting sucks. Be me, 16 a little over a month ago, the week leading up to July 4th, US Independence Day, go to a private SC beach with mom and baby brother. The beach is called Kiawah Island, and my family gets to go there on a heavy discount because my mom is there for a medical conference. Skip to Monday night when the story actually happens. Sneak out a few minutes past 11 to go places alone. Regular nighttime teenager stuff. On bike. No car because of seizure disorder. Bike from Turtle Point to Night Heron Park, then down to the beach from there. Pick related. Pleasantbeachwalk.x. Go back the same way I came. Riding back from the beach, notice how eerily quiet it is. No nighttime animal noises, frogs, crickets, etc., or even rustling noises from animals in the trees. Just the sound of my rusty bike chains. At the Night Heron Park, notice most of the lights around the nature center are out, and had clearly gone out since I rode by on the way over here. Figured it was between 11:45 and midnight, so they had no reason to turn them off between then and the first time I rode by, around 11:15 or so. Ride around on my bike on the boardwalk at the park for a few minutes. Couldn't find a pic of it, but it's the one with the nature center next to the pool. Anyone who's been there knows what I'm talking about. Get bored and decide to go home. Still really goddamn dark. There's a light flickering dimly over the basketball court at the park. The guy is pacing around the court, clearly an adult but clean-shaven blonde, wearing a light grey athletic t-shirt, dark-coloured shorts that reached about to his knees. Didn't remember what his shoes looked like. His build and face were strikingly similar to those of my history teacher, but the guy was at least 6 inches taller and had an oddly less distinctive face, like his facial features were unnaturally simple. Wave to him while riding by, say something stupid like, "Dark out, huh?" He just stares as I ride past, standing perfectly still. Think nothing of it and keep riding, he's probably just disabled. Look back no more than 4 seconds later. He's gone without a trace, didn't even make a sound. What the actual hell.jpg. Pedal a little faster. Good time to mention I'm using my phone as a flashlight because I have no other light source, and I've crudely mounted the phone to the front of the bike. At a certain point on the bike path between the park and Turtle Point, there's some kind of electrical apparatus sticking out of the ground in the middle of the path, covered by a locked metal box, about a 4 to 5 foot cube. The asphalt path moves to the left, but some people ride by on the right, so there's an area of bare ground on the right that functions as a part of the path. Riding toward that part of the path, see something huge move out from behind the electric box and block the path to the left. Swerve onto the right side without looking or slowing down, merge back onto the asphalt, pedaling fast. Look back to see what the hell that was. Super tall and lanky humanoid figure squatting on the bike path, difficult to make out other features in the darkness. It's staring right into my eyes, grinning widely like the Alice in Wonderland cat. Would have pedaled faster if it were possible. Look back again after 100 or 200 feet. Somehow it was the exact same distance from me as it was last time I looked back. Again squatting perfectly still. Continue biking back to my villa as fast as humanly possible, periodically looking back and all the while lamenting my clearly imminent death. Every time I look back, it is the same distance from me, like it was seriously screwing with me. No human can keep up with an adrenaline-fueled biker while spending a quarter of that time at a dead stop. This was seriously unnatural. When I get to my turn, I slow down as little as possible to speed back to my villa. Look back again. It's the guy. In the streetlights, I can make out more of the creature's details. It's wearing the same clothes as the guy from the basketball court, but noticeably without shoes. Same blonde hair, now patchy like it's falling out. Skin looks paler and even rotten in some places. No idea how he morphed into this creature. I just know somehow that it's him. Haul ass down Turtle Point Lane back to my villa. Keep looking back periodically. Pull into the parking lot. Take my phone out of my bike's basket and hop off while it's still moving. Run like hell to the building and up the stairs. Halfway up the stairs, look down at the creature. He's standing next to my bike, staring up at me. He had to be 7 or 8 feet tall, standing straight like that. Face looks nothing like the guy from the court. It's now pale and bony, with skin stretched horribly around its cheekbones and forehead. Its eyes are large, sunken, and almost all black. The nose is all skin and bone, no cartilage. Looks like the nose on a bare human skull. Mouth has no visible lips, with crooked, pointed teeth like a bunch of mismatched carnivore teeth glinting in a wide, tormentful grin. Only looked for a second while moving, but still can't shake the image. Rush into the villa and turn the deadbolt on the door. Grab a whole set of kitchen knives from the kitchen, as if dull, cheap stainless steel would help me. Quietly go upstairs to the bedroom I'm staying in. Sit down in front of the bed. The balcony is to my left, and I know the glass screen door is locked because it's been locked since before I came. Curtains block any outside view into the room. Breathe for about 15 seconds. Check the time, now 11:58. Hear a loud thump against the building at the base, directly below my balcony. Fear sets in. More thumps, getting faster, going up the side of the building. It's climbing. Terror sets in. Scramble over to the right side of the bed, away from the balcony. Pull out a big, dull chef's knife. The noises pass the balcony. Wait, what? .mp4. It gets to the roof and starts pacing around directly above my room. It starts making human noises, not like speech, but the noises people make. Laughing, crying, screaming, etc. Sit as still as a statue brandishing the knife. The noises get louder and more erratic, changing to different noises more often. I don't know how long this stuff lasted because I was too still to check the time. Sometimes the noises would stop, giving way to just footsteps, and sometimes all the sounds would stop, and I almost fell asleep once or twice in the silence. But the noises would always start back up again. It felt like how you'd expect doing nothing for 6 straight hours feels, just with the added element of uncontrollable fear. Silence again. Wait for the noises to begin again. I don't know how long, but a really long time. Notice the room is a little brighter than it had been. Managed to turn my head around. Light is filtering in through the curtains. I feel like moving a little more. Pull out my phone and check the time. It's 6:11, silently playing around on the phone. Mom gets up at 6:30 and leaves at 7, still in the same position on the right side of the bed. Begin to notice how sweaty and shaky I am. Slowly and shakily get onto bed and under sheets. I can't remember falling asleep, just staring at the ceiling for what felt like a really long time. Wake up just past 5:30. Hear TV is on downstairs. Go downstairs. Mum starts clapping. My cousins and I used to do that when someone got up really late. You were up pretty late last night. What were you doing in the kitchen so close to midnight? Respond dismissively. Say I was getting a bowl of cereal. Ask Mom if she heard anything later than that. No, I fell asleep around midnight. Cautiously go about my regular business for the rest of the trip, refusing to leave the villa alone or after dark. Still can barely sleep, and I see the creature's face every time I close my eyes.
An encounter while serving the army. Hello, anons. I'm not really good with Greentext stories. So here's a short write-up of a creepy experience while I was serving the army in 2014. After my basic military training, I was posted to another school to continue my training. One of the key training exercises needed to be done in order to complete this course is to attend a 6-day and 5 nights jungle training in Pulau Tekong. My group consisted of Harry and George. Usually everything is in buddy level, but one of my section mates fell out because he was sick, so the non-commissioned officer had to group 3 of us together. When we finally reached the training site in Pulau Tekong, I saw some of my non-commissioned officers already burning joss sticks and roasted pig heads at the training site. It was the Chinese Hungry Ghost Festival during that period, hence they were making offerings, probably to appease the spirits in the island. Now, the non-commissioned officers have to plant us in a triangular formation known as Khan area, so all the soldiers in the whole company had to be individually planted. Once the non-commissioned officer gives you a spot, you and your buddy will stay at that spot for 3 days as part of the training. When it was our turn, the non-commissioned officer told us to follow him, and we ventured deeper into the jungle. As we went further in deeper, I noticed that there were Chinese porcelains, blue and white in color, and bottles that looked like alcohol glass bottles on the ground. My first instinct was that it was going to be an easy jungle training, and I laughed it off since there were traces of people having a good time in the jungle. I found out later that these porcelain cups and glass bottles were used for prayers and to store ashes of the dead respectively. Clearly, I was young and dumb, so I didn't really know anything about it. During jungle training, at least one soldier needs to sleep while the other needs to stay awake. So we take turns doing this, which is the standard army sentry during jungle training. Since 3 of us were planted in that area, I tried to find a good spot ground to sleep on. So I started cutting down with a machete, punching and kicking all the thin trees around the area so I can sleep on a comfortable flat ground. At night while I was sleeping, I had a dream of a lady sitting on a chair beside me. She had long hair, very pale skin, and was wearing a long white dress. It was definitely a ghost. Her appearance resembles closest to a Pontianak. In the dream, she turned to me, suddenly shouted in a coarse and angry voice, "Lain kali jangan kakau aku lagi," which translated from Malay to English, "Next time don't disturb me anymore." I then would wake up in shock and looked around. George was awake while Harry and myself was asleep. I just shrugged it off and went back to sleep. The same thing happened for like 4 or 5 times. The same dream, the same words, the same face. It was kind of uneasy and I couldn't keep it off my mind, but I had a long day of training, so I fell back asleep. Next morning, when we were all awake, I sensed that none of us had a good night. The environment was very tense. It was jungle training, so I thought it was kind of normal to feel as such. Then George started talking. He said that last night while he was awake and doing sentry, something weird happened. He saw a black figure in the bushes and it was rattling around in the dark. This black shadowy figure was moving around and causing noises in the bushes. George took his rifle and torchlight and went to inspect the vicinity of the bushes to see what it was. He thought it was an animal or maybe an NCO that wanted to check if we are doing our sentry properly. He spent a few minutes searching, but in the end he found nothing. So he came back to where we were sleeping and sat down. As he was walking back, he heard the rattling of leaves again and saw a human-like figure. It was shrouded in all black long hair, black gown, standing on the trees and looking down at him. John is a brave soldier. He didn't know what it was, so he just quickly pointed the rifle at her. The black human figure then swooped and glided down from the trees, charging towards George. George reacted by quickly ducking and falling down to the ground. When he stood up again and the black figure was gone, he quickly ran back to where I and Harry were sleeping and just stayed there on sentry till morning. So when George told me his story, then I shared with him my recurring dream. Harry, on the other hand, did not experience anything unusual that night. So 3 of us just shrug off this story, hoping that we didn't offend any spirit. So the next night comes and we all have to dig shell scrape. Harry was lazy and tired, so he wanted to pick a soft spot to dig. In the end, he chose to dig his shell scrape on the exact same spot as I slept last night. The training began and we started digging our shell scrape. Harry was continuously digging. Suddenly, clang! He hit something hard. George and I didn't care and continued digging our shell scapes because we wanted to finish it as fast as we could. Harry kept calling us to have a look at what he hit. "Guys, come here. I think I know what happened." Eventually, George and I went over to have a look. Initially, I thought it was a weird-looking kind of rock, but the rock had Chinese characters on it. Then I suddenly realized that it was actually a Chinese tombstone. Everything started to make sense now. The area where we were sleeping was actually an old Chinese graveyard, which was why there were porcelain cups and glass bottles, shaped like wine bottles. We called the NCO to come over and have a look at the tombstone. He was shocked and speechless. He told 3 of us to pack up all our stuff and immediately shifted us over to another spot back in the con area. After that, there were no other spooky encounters during until today. I still cannot believe I slept on top of a Chinese grave. P.S. I think I angered the spirit because I remembered that I was cutting, punching, and kicking all the plants, which I believed was quite disrespectful in order to get a flatter ground for me to sleep more comfortably.
I've grown up with a parent who is pretty superstitious, and so I've been skeptical as I've gotten older to anything that was ghosts or aliens or anything I didn't experience myself. I wanted to believe it as a kid, but now nothing really makes me wonder like that except a few moments in my life. So I wanted to tell a story that happened to me when I lived in Hawaii in the 90s as a kid. It's the only thing I can't explain truly. I have one other thing, but this is the most truly unexplainable one. Anything else in my life I can come up with at least some sort of an explanation. World's weird, but I want to know the truth, so I swear this is true, no LARPing or looking to be Stephen King Jr. here. My parents are good people, but definitely like to party, and at 9 p.m. I always had to go to bed in my room so they could get to it. Didn't matter if I was actually tired, like 8:59 on the dot they were sending me to my room. My room faced the ocean, and we lived on the Big Island during that time. I'm about 6, and my dad, I remember specifically, was the last person I talked to. When I walked into my room, the moon was full and lit up my room, and I saw a fly trying to get out of my window. I used to catch flies and put them in a Bug's Life VHS case and hope to let them out in the morning and have a pet. Stupid idea because they always were dead. but here I went, attempting again. But this time when I opened my hand, the fly didn't even try to move anywhere, and I had a moment where I stared at it. After I blinked, which I remember consciously doing, my eyes opened to daylight, and the moon was gone, and the fly was still in my hand. My dad opened the door and was yelling about me being asleep so late for some reason. Fly flew out after, and I remember swearing to them I didn't sleep last night. All I did was go into my room and blink. To this day, I don't know what the hell happened, but it's the weirdest truth that ever happened to me.
The following seems to be another encounter with the creature that Ghost Bro had met during his trip in the Galapagos Islands.
I got a story for you /X/. I'm a 30-year-old high school teacher. Due to excess money in the school system, teachers can go on trips out of the country if it's for volunteering or research. I know it's not right, but if not me, it would be someone else going to Vegas or Hawaii. Ended up getting funds to go to the Galapagos Islands. As a biologist, this is like the holy land of modern biology. I landed on the island of Santa Cruz and took a speedboat to another island called Isabella. Worked with endemic plants and giant tortoises. Most of the trip was normal, until my last day. I had the last day off and wanted to do some exploring before I left. There is a 14-kilometer trail to a mountain. I was alone, so I decided I would just do a quick day trip on foot there and back. The way up the mountain was pleasant, and I spotted plenty of wild tortoises. There were plenty of other cool critters, but I was mostly interested in the tortoises. As I began to climb up the mountain itself, things started to get weird. Lots of rustling and sounds coming out of the surrounding trees. It was too quick moving to be a tortoise, so I assumed it was a wild dog. There are many wild dogs on Isabella. I was unnerved, but I wouldn't have another chance to come back to these islands, so I continued. The sun was starting to set, and the noises didn't stop. I should have turned back, but I needed to get to the end of the trail. The sound of a tortoise shell being dragged across rocks filled the air. You would hear the tortoises before seeing them, and they were not graceful movers, so this wasn't too weird. I went off the trail to try and spot it. That is when I saw it. It was a pitch-black creature. It looked like a cross between a dog and a crocodile, but with massive eyes and whiskers. In its huge mouth, it was dragging a smaller tortoise in its mouth. It looked old and partially eaten already. Even the shell was completely mangled. I was completely stunned and unable to move. The creature seemed a bit surprised too. After what felt like an eternity, its mouth gapped open and dropped the carcass. I'm not in great shape for my age, but that day I must have broken some record, because I was halfway back to the start of the trail when I ran out of breath. I knew I was being chased for a good portion of the time, because I could hear it galloping behind me before turning off the trail. Now I was completely out of breath, and the sun completely set. The bad part of being on the equator is that the sun always sets at 6. It took me a while to catch my breath before I could keep moving. The adrenaline in my system started to work its way out of my system, and I could notice a sharp pain in my foot. I really was not in shape to be sprinting, and must have screwed up my foot. As I limped down the trail, I heard a raspy snarl coming from my left, followed by rapid rustling. It was too dark to make out anything past brief glimpses of the black body moving behind the tree line. I was never more terrified in my life. An indescribable terror filled my chest. Almost clumsily, its head would smash into the trees and it would pass, making me further panic. I did not have another burst of energy like last time, and could only frantically hobble down the trail. I was about 1 kilometer away from a diversion in the path that led to the Tortoise Rehabilitation Center. Suddenly, the noises were replaced with dead silence. Before I could even think about the situation, it bolted out of the tree line towards me. Out of reflex, I threw a metal thermos at it. It made a 180, and with its huge tail, it swatted at me as it ran back towards the tree line. It felt like I was hit in the belly with a baseball bat, and I fell to my ass. Noticing me on my back, it turned back around and began moving towards me again. The thermos I threw had bounced back to my feet, and I made a gesture as if I were going to throw it again. It sulked back into the tree line and continued to tail me. I could finally see the sign signaling the side path, and for a moment was filled with relief, almost as if it were messing with me. The creature finally moved its huge body out on the path. In a trot that almost seemed cocky, it bounced itself behind me and then around to my side. closing in with every step. It was like when a predator when it's about to strike a defenseless prey. As I looked into its face, my life seemed to flash before my eyes. That is when the most beautiful sound came running down the path. A pack of wild dogs came charging at both of us, barking and growling. The creature bolted back into the tree line, never to be seen by me again. The dogs, ignoring me, gave chase into the tree line. I made it back to my hotel and had the best sleep of my night. Luckily, this was my last day, and in shock got back home in the autopilot. I have no idea what happened here. I have never heard of such a thing, and no matter how hard I look, I cannot find any information on what I encountered. Though seeing how quickly someone replied with an answer to what it is, I'm guessing this is a thing that is known already.
Not the longest story, because I only experienced it for a moment, but 10 years old, around Christmas. Grandpa has been sick for a while. Mom gets a phone call, he's passed away. Whole family gets in the car and drives 4.5 hours to her home city, staying there for a couple of days, a funeral, nothing out of the ordinary. On our way back, we drive through mostly unpopulated areas, and about halfway it happens. We see it from a distance. The sky is lit bright orange. Middle of nowhere, we drive past a lake. In the middle of it, there's a small island with large pine trees, and the entire thing is engulfed in flames, not just on the ground, but the trees are burning all the way to the top. We slow down a bit, but we are still driving pretty fast. On the other side of the road, there's a man staring at the flames. No car, as far as we know. Nobody lives anywhere near this place. We drive past him, but can't really get a good look. Only a silhouette. For some reason, his silhouette is burned into my memory, and I can still see him when I close my eyes. Anyways, nothing special. The island was on fire. It won't spread, so there is no danger. My mom calls the firefighters on the emergency number to report the fire, tells them where it is. I remember turning around and looking at it while we drove away. They tell her they've already been called once about it, and that they're on their way. We keep driving for maybe half an hour, maybe more, and she gets a call back. They tell her they've been to where the fire was reported. They've driven along the stretch, found the island, but said that it wasn't burning. We turned the car around and started driving back. We met the firefighters and stopped, telling us they had not passed a fire. There's only one road, so they wouldn't have missed it. We drove back, but never passed the island. We drove for over an hour, but there was literally no sign of either the island or the man. We got home, and my mom sat me and my brother down and told us it'd be best not to tell our friends. I still see it.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.